The five-star Grandview restaurant gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. Golden light reflected off polished tables and sparkling glasses. Yet the brilliance of the evening was pierced by cruel laughter echoing across the main banquet table. A young woman in a modest evening dress sat trembling, her hands clasped tightly. She lowered her head as mocking voices circled around her, words sharper than knives. At that moment, a man in a simple work shirt stepped forward. His hands were calloused, weathered by years of hard labor. Without hesitation, he placed a plain glass of water on the polished table before her. Then he raised his head, his voice deep, calm, but commanding enough to silence the entire room. "She's with me?" Every conversation stopped. The laughter died. Even the servers froze in place. At the head of the table sat a young woman with softly curled hair and eyes as cold as ice. Her fingers clutched a silver necklace at her throat, the locket trembling slightly with her rapid breath. Something about the man's presence unsettled her. It was a moment that brought the entire glittering dinner to a standstill. 12 hours earlier, Mark Hale stood in his modest kitchen, frying eggs while his 7-year-old daughter Emma sat at the table. The morning sun filtered through a small window, painting their simple home in warm light. At 35, Mark's hands bore the story of a working man, scarred and calloused from years of fixing air conditioners and refrigeration units. It was a hard life, but a life he had built on love, routine, and resilience. "Daddy, look." Emma beamed, holding up her newest crayon drawing. A rainbow arched across the page, with 3 stick figures standing beneath it, holding hands. "That's us," she explained proudly. "You, me, and—" She paused, tapping the 3rd figure, "someone who makes you smile." Mark chuckled, ruffling her hair. "You never stop dreaming, do you?" "Daddy's never alone," Emma declared with a certainty only a child could hold. "I'm always with you." In his shirt pocket, Mark carried a small leather notebook. On the first page was a note he cherished. "To Mark Hale, the man I owe my life to. Watch over him." It was signed by his old friend, Richard Lane, whose sacrifice had once changed everything. Across the city, Sophia Lane sat in her glass-walled office on the 42nd floor. At 27, she was the youngest billionaire heiress to run Lane Enterprises. Her ice-blue eyes scanned contract with mechanical precision, each decision calculated, detached. Tonight's banquet at the Grandview would finalize the most important international deal in the company's history. Her assistant knocked gently. "Mississippi Lane, the Grandview is prepared for tonight's dinner." Sophia touched the silver necklace at her throat, her most treasured possession, though she rarely remembered why. "Good. Make sure everything is perfect." That afternoon, Mark received an urgent call. The Grandview's air conditioning had failed, just hours before the critical banquet. "Come on, Emma," he said, grabbing his toolbox. "Daddy's got to save someone's fancy dinner party." The Grandview buzzed with activity. Servers polished silverware, crystal glasses caught the light, and flowers filled the air with fragrance. Mark worked quietly in a corner, while Emma colored in her notebook, content at his side. But peace didn't last. As they passed through the dining area, a group of wealthy patrons noticed them. One man in an expensive suit sneered, "Excuse me, I think you're sitting in the wrong section." The table erupted in laughter. Mark ignored them, but Emma stopped, her small voice carrying across the room. "Daddy, they're wrong." "It's okay, sweetheart," Mark whispered, taking her hand. The man persisted, his tone dripping with disdain. "This is a 5-star establishment. I'm sure there's a McDonald's down the street that would be more appropriate." More laughter followed. Mark's jaw tightened, but he walked on. Just then, a young woman in a modest dress stumbled as a server brushed past, spilling red wine across her outfit. The same group of patrons snickered loudly. "How embarrassing," one woman said. "Someone like that doesn't belong here anyway." The young woman flushed crimson, her humiliation feeding the group's cruel laughter. Mark paused, his eyes narrowing with something cold, but he said nothing. Emma tugged his shirt. "Daddy, why are they being mean?" "Because," Mark said softly, touching the notebook in his pocket, "some people forget what really matters." 8 hours later, the Grandview was transformed into a glittering showcase of wealth. Chandeliers bathed the room in golden light. Tables sparkled with fine china and silver. Sophia Lane entered like winter itself, elegant, untouchable. Her midnight blue gown flowed as she took her seat at the head of the main table, the silver necklace gleaming at her throat. Around her sat international business partners, each representing billions in potential contracts. At her right hand sat her assistant, the same young woman mocked earlier. She wore a borrowed dress, still faintly stained despite desperate scrubbing. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophia said, her voice cold and commanding, "tonight we celebrate the future of global commerce." Polite applause followed. Conversation filled the air again until Marcus Blackwell, a powerful London investor, raised his glass and said loudly, "I do hope we're not expecting everyone at this table to meet the same standards of presentation." Eyes turned toward Sophia's assistant. She flushed, tugging at her dress to hide the faint stain. "Some people," added Victoria Chun, a steel magnate, "simply weren't born for tables like this." Her laughter was sharp and cruel. The assistant trembled, whispering, "I should go." "Nonsense." Marcus pressed. "But perhaps we should establish a dress code. Can't have people showing up in what is that, a thrift store special?" The table erupted in cruel laughter. Phones appeared, ready to capture her humiliation. The assistant's breathing quickened, her hands shaking. Tears welled in her eyes. Sophia remained silent, her face unreadable. And then the air shifted. Mark Hale appeared beside the table, moving with quiet confidence. His work boots were silent against the marble floor. In his hand, he carried a simple glass of water. Without asking, without hesitation, he set it before the trembling assistant. The laughter died instantly. "Excuse me," Marcus sputtered. "This is a private dinner. Who do you think you are?" Mark's dark eyes met his, calm and unwavering. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "She's with me?" The words reverberated like a bell. The table froze. Forks hung midair. Conversations died mid-sentence. Sophia's breath quickened. Her fingers tightened around her silver necklace as she stared at him, something stirring in the deepest corners of memory. Victoria Chun tried to recover the table's confidence. "You can't just walk in here," she snapped, though her voice trembled. "This is a business dinner for serious people." Mark's gaze shifted to her, calm and steady. "I am serious. More serious than you know." The assistant looked up at him through her tears, wonder filling her eyes. Around the table, the powerful men and women who had mocked now sat frozen, as if they were the ones out of place. Marcus Blackwell stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble. "I demand to know who you are. What gives you the right to interrupt this dinner?" Mark gave the faintest of smiles, not warm, but sharp, edged with certainty. "I'm someone who keeps his promises. Someone who knows what real worth looks like." Sophia's breath hitched. His voice, calm, protective, unwavering, pulled at memories she had tried to bury. Her hand flew to the silver necklace at her throat. "This is absurd," Marcus barked. "I'll call the police." "Go ahead," Mark replied evenly. "But maybe ask your host first who she thinks belongs at this table." All eyes turned to Sophia. She sat pale and rigid, her knuckles white around her necklace. The room waited. Fragments of memory rushed back. Rain, twisted metal, her father's voice calling for help, another voice promising, "I've got you. You're safe now." The silence grew unbearable. Finally, Sophia's lips parted. "Pause the dinner," she whispered. Gasps rippled through the room. Marcus sputtered. "Sophia, you can't let—" "Sit down, Mr. Blackwell," she cut in, her voice sharp as glass. The investor faltered, then sank back into his chair, humiliated. Sophia's eyes locked on Mark. "Sir, may I have your name?" "Mark Hale." The name hit her like a thunderclap. Her hand clenched her necklace so tightly her knuckles blanched. Mark reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn leather notebook. He opened the first page and held it up, even across the table. Sophia recognized her father's handwriting. "To Mark Hale, the man I owe my life to, Richard Lane." Sophia collapsed back into her chair, her face drained of color. Memories surged. The storm, the icy river, the stranger who had dragged her and her father from the wreckage, the man who had disappeared before they could thank him. "My God," she whispered. The room buzzed with confusion. 15 years ago, Sophia began, her voice trembling but steadying with each word. "My father and I crashed into a river during a storm. We should have died. A man risked everything to save us. He disappeared before we could even ask his name. My father searched for months." She unclasped her necklace, revealing a small locket. Inside was a photo. 12-year-old Sophia, bandaged but smiling beside her father. "He gave me this," she said. "He told me I would recognize our rescuer by his eyes that had seen darkness but chose to bring light." She looked at Mark, tears brimming. "It's you." Marcus scrambled for footing. This could be some elaborate trick." Sophia reached into her bag and pulled out a leather portfolio. From it, she withdrew a letter, yellow with time but carefully preserved. "My father wrote this before he died," she said. She unfolded the letter and read aloud. "Sophia, if there ever comes a day when someone questions the worth of Mark Hale, remember this. He placed our lives above his own. The man who saves your life when he has nothing to gain belongs to our family forever. Trust him. Respect him. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." The final words fell like a hammer. Victoria Chin rose, bowing her head. "Mr. Hale, forgive us. We had no idea." One by one, the others followed, powerful magnates and CEOs standing in respect for the man they had dismissed moments earlier. Only Marcus remained seated, pale and sweating, his arrogance collapsing under the weight of Richard Lane's words. Sophia stood, her voice commanding now. "Let me be clear. Mark Hale saved my father. He saved me. And tonight, he saved someone else from humiliation. If anyone in this room cannot see his worth, then you don't deserve to do business with Lane Enterprises." The warning was unmistakable. Marcus's company stood to lose millions. He gathered his papers, humiliated, and stormed out. The rest of the room erupted in applause, genuine this time, filled with awe and respect. Mark stood quietly, his hand resting lightly on the assistant's shoulder. When the applause faded, he spoke 5 words. "Some things are worth protecting." From the corner, Emma appeared, skipping from the kitchen with her crayon box. She held up her newest drawing. A man in work clothes, a woman wearing a silver necklace, and a little girl, all standing beneath a rainbow. "Daddy," she called cheerfully, "I drew you with a pretty lady who has the same necklace." The room fell silent. Eyes turned from the child to Sophia's necklace, then back to the drawing. The resemblance was undeniable. Sophia's heart stuttered. Her gaze lingered on the innocent artwork, a child vision of hope, family, and connection. Emma skipped back toward the kitchen. Mark watched her go with a gentle smile, then turned to Sophia. Without a word, he set Emma's drawing on the table in front of her. "You look sad," Emma had whispered before leaving. "But in my picture, you're happy." Sophia clutched the drawing to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks. For years, she had measured her life in contracts and numbers, power and control. Now, staring at a child's rainbow and remembering her father's words, she finally understood. Mark took Emma's hand, ready to leave. Their footsteps echoed softly against the marble floor as they walked toward the exit, leaving behind chandeliers and billion-dollar deals. Sophia sat frozen, the crayon drawing trembling in her hands. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope, because sometimes the things that truly matter are not written in contracts or measured in wealth. They are found in sacrifice and protection, and in the innocence of a child's vision of love. The story ended not with words, but with a silence more powerful than any applause, the silence of a moment that changed everything.